Okay. Oh, sorry, there's a little ad there at the end. Welcome, everybody. Night 3 of the convention. Wow, Kamala just got off the stage. Well, actually, Jennifer Hudson got off the stage, but before that, Kamala did. We have our co-host from the board here tonight. A little preview for later on. Maybe you can guess what it was. Okay, so we have our co-host from the board here tonight, Barbie Applequist and Dolly Sloan. Thanks for joining us tonight. So let's start with the two of you. What did you think? What was your first takeaways from tonight's speakers?
Dolly, would you like to go ahead?
Dolly, you're muted. Unmute. Okay, I got you. Hold on. Unmute. No, you have to do it. Okay.
Okay, how's that?
All right. What'd you think, Dolly? The floor is
Hi there. I only see my own picture. Is there something wrong?
We all see you. You can click
Really?
on the speaker view at
Is
the top.
everyone on the
Why
screen?
Yeah. Why don't you tell us your thoughts about the convention first, and then we'll help you figure it out in a minute.
Okay. Well, at first I had to really fight seeing it from a production point of view. Like, why don't they have smoother segues? Why don't they have one continuous theme and so forth? And then as it went on, it took me over, especially when I think when they showed the individuals who are ordinary people who are really doing extraordinary things, and that really moved me. I thought that as we went along, the name people like Hillary appeared to me to be awfully rigid because of the medium that was being used, and I really felt very sad about it. But then along came Elizabeth Warren, who used the medium and was able to express her own personality. So it did, I must say that I had a lot of trouble getting out of being, what can I say, of wanting to reproduce the evening. And
I mean, it's a completely new format for convention, and I kind of wonder if we're going to see more features like we were talking about it last night. The feature of the roll call and how great that was actually better in this way. I think that everyone would agree that having a huge room packed of delegates would be better to hear Kamala and Joe's speeches, but a lot of these packages worked for me, and there was less awkward time while you're just waiting for somebody to walk onto the stage. A lot of it was live. Some of it was to tape. I was trying to track what was live. A lot of the biggest speeches were live. So Schumer last night and Pelosi were live this time. Hillary was live and Obama was live. But yeah, I mean, it's really tough when there's not even one person in the room who can clap, to command the kind of presence. I mean, even Obama, who normally is the great orator, it's a different situation.
Yeah.
Barbie, what did you think?
All right. I'm so excited. I'm having problems unmuting. First of all, I realized how lucky we are to have had Senator Harris as a representative from our state for years, because hearing her speak is nothing new for us, particularly those of us who are active in the party. And I was watching this with a group of colleagues from the Truman National Security Project from across the country. And for many of them, it was the first time they had kind of seen her speak in this way outside of stuff that had happened during the campaign, a long time ago. And I don't know, I'm just really proud to be from California today. I'm really proud that she lives in our district, and just I'm super excited for this ticket. Many of you know that my daughter Samantha had an opportunity to interview both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I'm just having a really happy moment of being a Democrat today, and of being a parent and being from California. And no one's perfect, right? Like, we all know Joe Biden has a history of things that aren't necessarily the best things, and neither does Kamala Harris in terms of her progressive things that she's done as an elected official. But they both clearly are so much better than Trump, and I think they're amazing leaders, and their leadership comes across because they don't say, oh, I've been perfect my entire time as an elected official. Instead, they say, over time, I've made decisions that weren't the best, and I'm going to spend the rest of my career making that up to the people. And I think that, I believe them, and I think they have the history to show that, yes, they might have made mistakes, but yes, they've also tried really hard to prove to the public that they've earned their vote, that they're worth the vote, and we should believe in them again, and what they can do for us. So I'm super excited, as you can tell.
Yeah, well,
I'm really excited.
I will say that since she became when she was announced that she would definitely be Joe's pick, we saw a different part of her personality than usually the viewer who only knows her through the TV screen would see. You seeing her smiling, you're seeing her having a joy, you're seeing her as a family person. You're not seeing her as the person who takes apart Barr or takes apart the former attorney general and makes them quiver. And that humanizes her. But there's one other thought I had, that one reason that I believe that she structured her talk to show her strength tonight was because it's well known that people are looking at her, undecided voters, or those who really aren't like us, who really know where we're going with this. They're looking to see, what is she like in case something happens to Joe when he's president? And I think she showed herself tonight to be someone that they could identify with as a person and humanize her.
And they had Barack Obama tie into that as well, because he mentioned that she was ready on day one in his comments about Kamala Harris, my friend Kamala Harris. I thought that the focus for her, this speech, was clearly more about her family and talking about her background, growing up as the daughter of immigrants, as opposed to more policy heavy, which I feel like even Republicans and people who don't pay close attention to politics, that's one thing they do know about Kamala Harris is, like you said, Dolly, her ability to take apart these Trump people in Congress.
Hey, John, can I add to that?
Yeah, hey, here we go. So Daniel's one of our great phone bankers, and he was also on the Santa Monica for Kamala group, and that's how we met. And we brought him into phone banking. What did you think tonight, Daniel?
So I don't really have many comments on the speech that she gave tonight. She was very clear about that, but I have been on the phones in the past week on the dialer system, making calls to supporters and undecided people. And, one of the things, to be excited about is, even with Kamala on the ticket, is that, she can probably, kind of influence Joe Biden on policies and on action. Yes, she's obviously made mistakes, but there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. There's no such thing as a perfect person. So, even with those mistakes, she has made a lot of progress, on things like what she talked about, winning a lot of money from the big banks during the foreclosure crisis. That's not just talk, it's action. a few things on criminal justice reform too. And, you know, also, this is one of the things that she hasn't talked about, but, you know, here's an important vote that she cast in 2018 in the Senate. I think it was February of 2018. So there was a compromise. It was, you know, get DACA, but for, you know, something like a $25 billion border wall funding. And she was one of 3 Democrats who voted against that, and for 3 reasons. The first 2 are obvious. One, it's immoral. 2, it's a waste of money. But the third one was also that given how ineffective such a wall would be, that money would be used for other anti-immigrant purposes. And that's why she voted against it. And she was one of 3 Democrats to vote against that, the other 2 being the senators from New Mexico, Heinrich and Udall. And, you know, in fact, last year, she was the only senator running for president who voted against it. So I've talked to some people on the phones in the past few days, and there have been a few that have told me, you know, inspiring stories regarding immigration, and that, you know, unfortunately, the policies right now are not good for them. So so after listening to them, I told them about her vote that she cast, you know, in early 2018. And, you know, I would say something like, you know, given that immigration affects you, you know, do you think she made the right decision? And every one of them said, yeah, of course she made the right decision, you know, even though she had to go against her own party to do that. So, yeah, you know, she's not perfect. Joe Biden is not perfect, and mistakes happen. But I think there are a lot of things there that, you know, they don't really talk about, you know, when they talk about themselves. But those are really important things to know moving forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. I mean, you must be so excited seeing Kamala on the ticket now, considering how hard you worked for her during the primary. I mean, and I think you're right that she has the ability, because we saw Joe Biden pushing Obama on a lot of issues. And we saw Joe Biden for 8 years. I mean, obviously he understands the value of a vice president. So we know he picked a good one here this time. Why don't we bring in our first guest now, somebody who I know also, like you, Daniel, has been a huge supporter of Kamala Harris for a very long time. The chair of our rent control board here in Santa Monica, Nicole Phillis.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Happy Kamala Harris Day. It's a really wonderful day. I am so excited to share this evening with you. It's a really big moment. I think it's a big moment for women. It's a big moment for the party. It's a big moment for women of color. It's a big moment for our country. And I know that there are a lot of folks who have stories about Kamala, but, you know, I think this is the way that I came to know her always really stuck with me, and it's a story that I would like to share. So I first came to know Kamala back in 2013 or 2014 when she was still Cal AG. And I got to know her through a public-private partnership, a roundtable for representation of immigrant families. And at that time, there were a lot of big law firms that were very, very interested in representing unaccompanied minors. And Kamala put together a huge roundtable, I mean, of some of the biggest firms in California, and really impressed upon us not just the need to represent unaccompanied minors, which obviously, you know, they need representation, but the entire family unit. And she was talking about, so she, from my perspective, she was talking about family separation when it was happening under the Obama administration. She was standing up to the Obama administration's policies on immigration when it wasn't politically okay for her to do so. She was a prophetic and courageous voice. And her ability to connect people and mobilize people in a way where she was really being a progressive leader was something that stuck with me. So I was with her in the primary. I was absolutely crestfallen when she dropped out. And I am so glad that she was on the ticket. She, I think, has not just what it takes to be our next vice president, but I think she's going to be our first woman president. And I cannot wait to see what she does next. And I think it's also important to acknowledge the women that came before her, like Hillary Clinton, who was amazing, and I still can't even talk now because I feel like every person here remembers that pain. And for Hillary to show up for us and to show up for Kamala, I thought she was incredibly powerful. I thought Gabrielle Giffords was unbelievably powerful when she was talking about the difficulty in finding the words and fighting through it. I've never seen a more eloquent speech. Thinking about the women who came long before her, Shirley Chisholm and Charlotte Bass. These are women who set the stage, who allow us to hold elected office. And there are so many women. I'm looking at this Zoom and I'm so happy to see women of so many different backgrounds, so many different perspectives here, and we're mobilized. And it's because of the work that our sisters and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers did to get us here. So I think it's a really historic moment. I'm grateful to be here. I'm so excited that we're going to hear from Sepi on her historic candidacy on the West Hollywood City Council. I'm so excited to see my colleagues, Anastasia Foster and Carolyn Tarosis, who are in an incredibly tight race for the Santa Monica Rent Control Board. I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to share this moment with you all tonight. It's a big one, and I love the space that we share together.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thanks so much for your perspective on it. I see our Councilwoman Anna Hara is here. Anna, what was going through your mind as you saw Kamala Harris accept the nomination? I mean, that must have been so powerful as a woman of color from California.
You know, it reminded me of when I went over to President Obama inauguration. It was that powerful to see not only someone of color, but a woman that has the same values, that cares about people, that has so much that we share. There are just so many emotions going through, you know, my mind, and it's just so powerful. I can't wait. I can't wait until after November 3rd, because I think that we're going to get good things done. I'm just in awe. I can't wait. I just can't wait. I know that she has made an awesome stand even before getting here. I know that she's got wonderful values, and I know that it's not only because she's a woman of color. It's because who she is in essence. That's what makes me feel so hopeful for our future.
Great. Yeah, very well said. Very well said. So Nicole, you brought up Hillary Clinton, and I know that Barbie is a huge Hillary Clinton supporter. So I mean, I know there's a lot of love for Hillary in this room. I thought her speech was great, and I noticed that she did a lot of callbacks to not only it takes a village, or she said, yes, it still takes a village, but she also actually made a callback to Al Gore's speech in 2004, because in 2004, Al Gore said, the Bush administration led to a lot of job losses. Take it from me. I was the first one laid off. And Hillary made a similar joke tonight, one of the few jokes of anybody in any of the speeches about take it from me, because Trump can win by 3 million votes and still lose. But she really gave a great speech tonight in favor of, and it was gracious because it must have been such a hard moment for her to speak in that context and see what has happened since she lost the election. Barbie, what did you think when you were watching that?
So I was a bit torn, right? Because seeing her there in the suffragist white and wishing and feeling, you know, in terms of the votes, like she's our president, right? She should be our president. This should be her re-election campaign. But once I stepped away from that grief and sadness, I admired how it wasn't about her. You know, like it really was about we have to make sure we don't elect Trump. You know, and I think there was an opportunity, there was a space for her to make it much more about her instead, and her still mourning her loss and all of those things where a lot of people could have, you know, empathized and sympathized and wished she would have won again. But I really liked how she was able to pivot, and I think it was smart the way they placed her in the program tonight. They didn't place her right before Kamala. They put Obama right before, which I think was incredibly smart, because he was our last president, and he commands such a presence in a way that doesn't bring in the same emotion, I think, that when we hear from Hillary does. So it was good to see her. It was good to see her and to hear from her. And she has legacies that will continue on in time. We'll read about her in history books. But this is Kamala's time and Biden's time.
Totally, and I thought it was good to show her when they did a little bit earlier on, like you said in the program, once they cut to the, so the last hour is what gets shown on the national networks. It's like block programming. There's nothing else on TV except for this. And, in that moment was when they were showing Obama, Kamala, they had Hilda Solis on during that part. There were cameos I saw from the economic section. They had cameos from Sherrod Brown. Eric Garcetti was in there for a little bit. Cindy Axne from Iowa, who I really like, a freshman in Congress. But yeah, they put Hillary earlier on because I think that in this context, Hillary is actually more playing to the base. The context of this election that we're seeing is that Joe Biden is playing this convention to a much broader set of Americans than the Democratic base. And Hillary was giving actually a pretty base-heavy speech, I thought.
To add to it too, though, I feel like because we had Hillary standing on that stage 4 years ago, seeing Kamala stand on that stage tonight wasn't as shocking. Yes, she's a woman of color, and we haven't seen a woman of color in that space before. But in terms of seeing a woman, hearing a woman's voice, it wasn't as new because Hillary had done it before. And before her, Geraldine Ferraro. But for a lot of people, they have no idea who that is. So it was.
Barbie, can I chime in with you 1 second on that one? That's what my older daughter says to my younger daughter, and I love it. I love it in that fact because she says to me, I started in the 60s, and there would be revolutionary, see where we're at now. And my older daughter especially says, it's amazing. I like it, but, it's not new to me. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, that's good,
Totally. Well, I wanted to ask Dolly, because Barbie, you mentioned Geraldine Ferraro, so three of us hosting plus Nicole we brought in. I don't think any of us necessarily remember that speech.
I do.
What was your you hosted last night. I was going to ask Dolly, since she's hosting tonight, what she thought about when she saw Geraldine Ferraro's speech in 1984. This is something that we've seen as Democrats that in 1984 and then in 2016 with Hillary. How are you feeling about it this time compared to those?
Well, it's totally different world, totally different. I mean, in that campaign, she definitely, it was as if she had a place and she had to stay in it. And that place was not to upstage anything. I don't remember. I was very happy that she was running, that she had the position, but she never really was able to show who she was. She was kind of just there.
Mhm.
And now everything is totally different. It's like what Dami was saying. It's like we take a lot for granted. And now I'm really feeling that it can happen. It's like I was wondering if I could live my life and see a woman president, and that it wouldn't happen after what happened in the last election. And but now I think yes, it's going to happen, and I also feel that Kamala is the absolutely perfect person for the moment. She couldn't be more perfect. So I'm really feeling more confident. I wish I could tell you more about the past, but it's as if I moved on and kind of forgot about it because because then the women's movement happened. The women's movement really started. We were very busy creating what became the present and all. So yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think, Peter?
Geraldine Ferraro ran into trouble not because of herself, but her husband, and she got tarred with some shady things or questionable things. Let's not say shady, that he had done, and so she never really got off the ground. Her campaign, or her part of the campaign, never really got off the ground. It was too bad because she was a good woman and she was a good representative, as I remember. She was from my home state, New York.
Well,
I am just dying to see what the polls say when they come out next week about this convention, because I think this has been, given the fact that nobody's ever done this before, I think it's been amazing how well they've done. They've had very few glitches, and the glitches were not big deals.
Right. Well, and like Dami and Dolly have said, I mean, it's so normalized now. And I was talking to a bunch of activists while we were watching the speeches, and we were commenting about how the fact of a woman running for president is not only normalized, but I would expect the next field to have many women and women of color. And I mean, it just won't even be, I mean, you know, we started off really like you'd see one, like remember Carol Mosley Braun was like the one woman in the field, and then we viewed one, then two, then this past field was very diverse and we had all sorts of women. And now I think the floodgates are really opened. And when you think about who the front runners are for, like, whether Joe Biden is 1 or 2 terms, if you think about who the front runners would be for the next nomination, Kamala Harris, obviously, which we've already said comes to mind, but even the second, third, fourth people that you think about are all women, and a lot of them are women of color. It's very exciting. So let's bring in, Nicole, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, we haven't had a woman president.
Right.
We've had Hillary Clinton. We've had, obviously Geraldine Ferraro in the vice presidential role. We had Shirley Chisholm. We had Charlotte Bass, but we haven't broken the ceiling yet. And what's really important is that we be mindful of the insidious ways in which sexism and racism creep into the dialogue, right? Because it's easy to say, well, yeah, in 2020, we had these great opportunities, and look, there were so many women initially in the field, and of course now it's a level playing field, but it's not, right? The truth remains that 200 something years in, and it's been all men president. And if you think about it, kind of the logical extension, well, if we're going to even the playing field and say for the next 230 something years it's only going to be women, that's an absurd position, right? So the deck still is stacked against us, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to really be mindful about the ways in which sexism, racism, the combination of the two creep into the way that we talk about these candidates. and in particular the way that we know that Kamala is going to be attacked and the ticket is going to be attacked, and that we be prepared to hit it head on.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that the primary ended with us picking an old white man. And I mean, we have been hearing a lot of great stuff about him, and he is going to be a great nominee, and he's going to be an even better president. But you're absolutely right. We can't lose sight of the fact that we still nominated an old white guy. So, you know, we need to be very aware of that and be thinking about it. And I really saw some good messages in tonight's speeches about those issues, reaching out to more marginalized voters. So I wanted to bring in our next guest, Carolyn.
Hey, John, can I add one more thing?
Oh, sure, yeah. And then we'll bring in Carolyn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know I already spoke. I don't want to make this too long, but I just want to add to that the word experience, you know, also, you know, just that word plays a big role, you know, given Kamala Harris's background, that, you know, she's a woman of color. You know, there are some people that have even asked me over the phone, well, they don't think that she has enough experience. But, you know, the fact is, this doesn't really get aired much on the news, but, you know, even though she's been in the Senate for only 3 years, she has actually gained a lot of experience. One of the things that I've read recently was that on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is very difficult, they deal with, you know, almost all classified information, that people on that committee from both sides of the aisle actually look up to her. And she learned that job, you know, very quickly. And Democratic staffers and Republican staffers actually seek her advice when it comes to questioning these people. So, yeah, the fact of the matter is she does have to prove herself, you know, twice as hard, and that's unfortunate. But, you know, if you're like me, you know, you're going to be on the phones in the near future. And when people ask that question, well, what experience does she have? You know, that's something that, you know, we can right then and there answer those questions, and then get undecided voters to support the ticket and feel confident with her as Joe Biden's vice president.
Hey, and John, I just want to, I don't want to derail this at all, but I know that Dina said that she had a question. Feel free to tell me.
Dina, go ahead and put your question in the chat if you don't mind, and then I'm going to bring in Carolyn because I've just been waiting to call on her. And then once we hear from Carolyn, we're gonna go to your question after that. So Carolyn Fowler is a new DNC member elect.
Greetings, everybody.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
I thought this was a party.
Surprise.
Didn't you tell people to dress up or whatever? And I'm
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
I've been to a lot of parties. This is like kind of dull. I should maybe defer to my chair, Rusty Hicks, who's there patiently waiting. Did you see Rusty?
Yeah, I see him. Hey,
You
Rusty.
go right ahead.
Oh, that's cool.
Carolyn, what did you think of
Did you want me to speak to something in particular, or?
Well, I mean, your thoughts on the convention tonight, but especially seeing Senator Harris speak. I mean, what was going through your head when you were watching her speak?
Yeah, it's you know, it's you get emotional, you know, you get teary-eyed, you get happy. I just also happen to be from the same sorority. And so when you understand what that means to the sisterhood, if you will, she didn't come from an Ivy League school. She went to HBCU, the first HBCU to be recognized. It says a lot. Historical Black College, for those who may not know, I'm trying not to use acronyms. But I think what struck me, to be honest, is that unfortunately today we lost a former assembly member, Gwen Moore. And so that struck me that she didn't get to see this moment. And she worked so hard on so many issues with a civil rights bent to her legislation. She was former chair of utilities, and I know I personally gained from that. She really rounded up the utilities in terms of fair wages, promotions, etc. I mean, once she passed that legislation, I mean, I got 2 promotions right away. And if you understand, and that's just me, it was Edison, it was AT&T, it was all the utilities. And many African Americans worked in the utilities as a result of that. And when you talk about benefits, good paying jobs, I know that contributed to my daughter not having college debt. So I know my parents, that they both had, one was ASBE, one was UAW. I didn't have college debt. And so I clearly understand what that means.
It's 9 o'clock.
I'm sorry?
I think it's okay. I muted her. Go ahead, sorry.
The library.
Oh, okay. Going along.
Right, it's the library.
Monumental achievement. I wish her the best. I know she'll do well, but everything is a team effort. And it's like someone said tonight, you know, don't quit. Let's get the vote out. Let's do what we need to do, but don't go away, because we still have a lot of work to do. And that's the one thing that I've always preached is, how do we mobilize all year long? You know, how do we keep the momentum going to get the work done we need to get done? And it's going to be challenging for them. I mean, the guys ran the dang country into the ground damn near. So they are going to need our help. They're not going to need to be criticized. It's interesting when Daniel said, what do you say? Then we own knowing about our candidates, knowing what their accomplishments are. I don't think you get to be a DA, then an attorney general, then a senator, because you don't have any background. It just doesn't work like that. And I think we own learning what their accomplishments and achievements are. You bring in $18 billion to, I mean, people have told me, Latinos, African Americans, even white people, she saved their homes, literally. Getting that money literally saved their homes. And so that's a story that's not told often enough. They want to bid on the incarceration piece, but when you hear her friends talk about it, she developed a program through the state that you can, if you go through her program, she'll erase your record, she'll get you a job, and you're starting out fresh. She partnered with all the agencies. So, but you don't hear those stories. So I'm very proud. I'm proud of her. I'm proud of the work we're going to have to do. I'm proud we have 2 people that we should want to work for. I think the convention as a whole, considering it was online, in many aspects I kind of like better. I love the roll call. I just thought that was just
Great.
Fabulous for the country to see things that we take for granted, but for the country to see all the different geography, all the different people dressing differently, you know, all 57 of the states and the territories. People are still talking about that socially today. So for women, I appreciated what Barbie or whoever said that about, it's no big deal to see her on the stage. Like, it's not like a shock anymore after Hillary. And by the way, Hillary did win. I forgot who said that, but she did win. I guess it was Mayana. It was just stolen. And every day we find out more and more about that issue. But things happen for a reason, for whatever reason. And I think now that there's probably going to be more of a social justice and a community, how do we build community approach? I think that's the way to go. But we've got only, 76 days. And I feel like you're almost afraid to go to sleep, but you can only call people for so long, but we got a call. I know some of us are still planning to raise money because we know we need it. So I'm excited about the opportunity. but we don't get the opportunity if we don't put the work in now to make it happen. And so those are my thoughts initially. I thought Barack talked too long, frankly, but I guess when you go all the way to Philadelphia and you're standing there by the Constitution or whatever, you can't resist it.
Shout out. So they filmed it at the Museum for the American Revolution, 3rd and Chestnut, Old City, Philadelphia. My parents lived 1 block away, and they were able
is that right?
They didn't see Obama, but they saw the whole setup and everything. So there you go.
Yeah, it's
He was really
the nostalgia probably got to him as a constitutional professor, so he just went on and on.
And just a couple blocks away from where he delivered the race speech back in
Yes. So I'll stick around so you guys can move along.
Amazing. Well, it's a great time to bring in the question from Dina now. So she was asking about, and I want to defer to, we have 4 great women on already been introduced on the panel, and then I want to hear from Dina too. This issue about what happened, and Ernie Powell, the former president of our club, brought it up live last night on the meeting about the NBC tweet that went out that kind of made it seem like AOC was snubbing Biden, and when in fact she was just seconding the nomination for Sanders, which I think in a normal convention it would be obvious because it's on the stage and the theatrics of that. But I guess the media, it seems to me to be a sexist interpretation of what happened. What did you all make of that incident? And Nicole, why don't you start?
Yeah. So I think that absolutely, what AOC did was completely within what we would expect at a convention. I think to folks who have fluency in that kind of dialogue, we understand it. Absolutely, I think the response was unfair. Of course, we know that women are scrutinized in ways that men aren't. If there had been a man in her position, I don't know that the response would have been the same. I think it's also
Bob King. They didn't say word one about him. They only targeted her, and she just seconded the nomination.
Right. So exactly my point. Perfect explanation is that she definitely is scrutinized in ways that her male colleagues are not. I think it's also a really important reminder that for many folks, and I think including folks in the media, that there are some divisions from 2016 that we need to consciously work as a party to heal. We need to choose to unite behind Joe Biden, choose to unite behind the nominee. AOC has absolutely and unequivocally done that. But we need to be mindful of the fact that the media will seize on, potential ways in which there is a perception of division in the party, whether it's true or not. And we need to create space. This is a big tent party. We need to create space for everyone. And that means I think truly, unequivocally, in an absolutely unqualified way, rallying behind Joe Biden and Kamala. And AOC has absolutely done that. So I think she's been a role model she's certainly a role model for me. She's a role model for a lot of other women. And I think that, everyone was in this group is absolutely right that what happened to her was not okay, was likely very much driven by sexism, and is a cautionary tale for how we have to proceed in this election.
Don't you think, though, it was because she's a lightning rod?
I was just going to say, but I wanted to actually ask her, what is her take on how do you think we should best hold the media accountable for this specifically? Because the media is the group that is the one that took what was a basic pro forma thing within our party and decided to run with it. So how do you think we as a party should hold them accountable?
I think the best way to hold the media accountable is to make sure that we put out the best, most accurate information possible, and we make sure that people understand. I don't think that, personally, what I think one of the greatest kind of harms that has been born out of the Trump administration is that the American public doesn't know who to trust. And for a long time, the media was the fourth estate. The press was the fourth estate. They were supposed to be that electric rail, that guardrail, to provide accountability for members of government. And it's it's a dangerous thing when people don't know who to trust because they start to trust unreliable information. So, from my perspective, it's really important to communicate effectively, to explain why what she did was, completely within the realm of normalcy, and also to emphasize that she has always made clear, as has Bernie Sanders, that they are united behind Joe Biden. And I think that's the message that we really need to lean into.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Well, so now I want to bring in our next guest, another Fowler. We have two Fowlers with us tonight. Dallas Fowler, who's here. Dallas? I hope she's here. Okay, well, we'll come back. We'll come back to Dallas. I know Carolyn will find out where she is. All right. So why don't we go to our next guest after that? Is actually the chair of our state California Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks, and I'm pleased to reveal. Hold on. I have my Rusty Hicks for chair shirt on today. So welcome, Rusty Hicks.
I'm glad to see those shirts are getting some use somewhere for something, as opposed to just washing people's cars, which is certainly a perfect use for them as well. It's good to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So what did you think? We've been talking about Kamala Harris, but one of the things that I've been thinking about watching her getting the vice presidential nomination is the idea of having a product of the California Democratic Party system. I mean, I became a delegate in 2011, and that was right when she came in as Attorney General. So I've seen her speech after speech, addressing us over the years. I mean, you must be so excited to have that opportunity. What were you thinking about tonight?
Well, I mean, it's outstanding to have a California Democrat on the national ticket. We haven't had one in a long time, and aside from Ronald Reagan, and that doesn't count in my view. And so, first, to just have a California Democrat on the ticket is obviously energizing and motivating for Democrats up and down the state, not only just to be active in California, but to be active in other parts of the country, which I think is particularly important in this election. And that California Democrat happens to be a woman of color, the first in our nation's history. The combination of those factors are obviously exciting for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, and certainly something that we can all be proud of. Absolutely.
Definitely. What were some of the other highlights for you involved in this convention? Have you been able to see a lot of the speeches?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the first night, the Michelle Obama 18 minutes of realness, which I felt like was the most sort of compelling and clear articulation of what's at stake. And for her to say he's simply incapable of being who we need him to be for us, I thought was the clearest outlining of what this really is. And then at the same time, having, President Obama, to my sister Carolyn, obviously it may have went on a little long, but it was comforting to actually be talked to like an adult. And in some ways not be spoken to as a partisan. This is probably the most partisan speech he's given in a long time, and yet I didn't feel that he was there as a partisan. He was there as someone who was committed to the democracy that we are all a part of. And in some ways, in his own way, breaking the glass and sounding the alarm and saying, somebody's got to show up. Because as Michelle said, it could get worse.
Right.
It will get worse in some ways. And so, and then I think obviously having, Kamala Harris accept the nomination, and I thought it was a different speech for her in some ways. It is her moving into a different role than one in which she's been the candidate, she's been the executive, when you're the DA, when you're attorney general, and really when you're a senator, even though it's a legislative body, you're an executive, you're in charge of everything. And so for her, in the course of a week to transition into a different role, I felt like she was both introducing herself or reintroducing herself to the country, and yet also finding her role in that team with her and Joe Biden. So it'll be obviously interesting to see over the next 76 days. It's a phenomenal ticket, and certainly I think a winning one, which is frankly the most important thing.
Right. I think so too. Yeah. So I saw that Dallas is back on the line. Dallas, are you with us now?
I am, and if you just give me 2 more seconds, I am walking through my door, and I will be in good light.
Great.
So that you can see me. Coming in now. It's been I feel like I went to Milwaukee. Do you all feel like you went to Milwaukee?
Well, I actually thought that, I guess that they were speaking from Delaware tonight, but I actually thought that the set that Kamala spoke at was the best yet, because it was it felt like in some way you were paying homage to the big convention hall. And even though it was completely empty and you saw like 2 people holding up their iPhone, it was kind of cool to see that. And it gave Kamala's speech the gravitas of a real convention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I felt like they should have done that for a few other folks too, but I really did like that. I was in tears, I thought, the messaging from her kids to her sister and her niece, and just knowing her story and knowing everything, all of the scrutiny that comes with this position, that comes with leadership, and that is often over or unbalanced when it comes by the attacks when it comes for women, and particularly women of color, and so it's an emotional evening for me, because I never thought that maybe in my lifetime, maybe not, that I would see someone from my state, someone that I have respected, had a high regard for, and who have worked hard to be elected for. And to see her get to this level has been very, very impactful and meaningful. Everybody on this line probably knows that Joe Biden was not my first, second, or last choice, but here we are, and here he is making history. You don't always get what you want in an elected official, and I do recognize the pressure that all of our electeds are under. It's a big task that both of them are going to be taking on for the world. For the world. Our senator is going to be representing us to the world. And that means everything to a Black girl from South Los Angeles. So I hope you all can take this moment for whatever it means, no matter how you feel about Kamala. and just understand that this moment means so much more to so many that have been the most vulnerable people, some of our most vulnerable population, little Black girls, little Black boys that don't always see this opportunity. So I'm glad I got to share with you all. I miss Santa Monica Dims. I really do miss you guys.
I'm glad to see you here, Dallas, really. Yeah, I totally agree. And I saw this thematic tie-in between Obama and Kamala, where they were talking about you, and they kept using that word in both of their speeches. And I think that that was a pivot toward actually us being the activists and reminding us that this is not just going to happen, and it's not just about electing Biden-Harris. It's about us and us harnessing the possibility of a progressive future. And I thought that was a really strong message. Kamala said, you, me, and Joe together. And then she said, we won't tell them what we felt, we'll tell them what we did. And I mean, I think that is a very strong case for, like you said, Dallas, and I know you've been pretty open about your feelings about the Democratic Party over the past couple of years. But, you know, it is the type of thing that we can all come together to get behind. And you know, putting Kamala Harris in as VP would certainly be a great first step in that process. Yeah.
Everybody's got something that they're fighting for, you know, and I think the Democratic Party tends to bring most of us together under this tent. And I love what someone said earlier when I was in here, that we have to make room. We have to make room for people with different ideas, different thoughts. It might not have been the way things have always been, but in order to get to that level of progress, that somebody's missing out. I think sometimes we get to the table and we think because we're at the table, everyone's at the table. Everyone's not at the table. And we have to make room for everyone to be at the table.
Even the fact of there being at the table implies that there are people not at the table.
That part.
So we definitely have a lot of work to do there. And I heard, I think it might have been Michelle Obama in her speech talking about that Joe Biden was the man not only to join the ticket with the first Black president, but then to bring the first Black woman onto the ticket is I mean, we see his role in that progress in the March of History.
You know, sometimes you got to take a little bit of good, a little bit of bad to get the good that you want. Sometimes it's like that. And I think because of the progress, look, everybody I'm talking to is, no matter how you feel, we have to get this jackass out of office. And until we do that, hold the protest, but pick the protest back up on January 20th. Let's not forget that. We continue to hold accountable. We continue to push for the things that are really important to us: our health, our education, our welfare, our income and inequality, all of those things. Every single reason why you're fighting: accessibility, Social Security, every reason why you're fighting. And pick that up on January 20th. But for right now is vote and getting our ballots to the polling place. And the post office is telling you you can't depend on them. So we have to be getting that message out to people and working and doing the work to ensure that everybody's ballot and voice can be heard.
Definitely. Yeah, good point. And I wanted to bring in Dami. I know Dami said he had a question for Chairman Hicks.
Yeah, hi Rusty, how you doing?
I'm well.
So thanks a lot. Thank you for everything you've been doing. You've been great. I mean, let me tell everybody here, I mean, because John and I work a lot with the party, and like the party now is like been just listening to the grassroots, and all of us in the grassroots, it's been up and down, like meeting right in the middle, and we all been working really hard. So while you're here, I want to ask you some questions. And you know me, everybody else comes to you at the conventions and takes a selfie with you. I usually pull you aside and talk to you about some kind of like, hey, when are we going to be phone banking, or what are we going to be doing? So I wanted to ask you some things too about that, about, you know, what's coming up in, you know, what we should be doing in the field right now. Because I mean, we're hyper organized. Everybody's super organized now. We got all the Dem clubs revved up. We got the HQs, etc. You know, I've been talking to Dem. We've got the new strategy of, like, especially for LA, to be focusing on the districts around us, like 25, 48, 39, things like that. And then when is, like, the, you know, when is the Biden Harris campaign going to start rolling out? And what do you see things that we should be doing? Like, is it phone banking, text banking, you know, postcarding, fundraising? We got the Save the Seven event coming up. So just, yeah, why don't you talk to us, because you got some of your heavy duty fighters here, okay?
So you asked the question of should you be doing postcarding or text banking or phone banking or letter writing, and my answer is yes. We should be doing all of that. You know, obviously we are not planning, not encouraging, not preparing to do door-to-door canvassing. Obviously, if local leaders want to do that, that's certainly up to them. But that's not something, and we ask them to, we've provided some guidance about how best to do that, but we're not encouraging that. Obviously, we want everyone to stay safe, and we think that we can still fully deploy a high quality program at scale in a virtual world, and I think we have to. I would say the state party's objective in 2020 has been to create the infrastructure by which grassroots leaders could engage in activity, empower grassroots leaders to engage in activity that's important to them. And so whether that's on the national level, on state races, or congressional races in California, or state legislative races, or even local races, we've tried to create the infrastructure that didn't necessarily dictate saying, you will ID on this and this and this. Certainly there are some important priorities that I think we are all connected to. You know, Proposition 15, schools and communities first. Proposition 16, the repeal of Proposition 209, are just two examples. There's obviously plenty of others. But we've spent, as have you guys, we've spent 7 months working out and getting prepared for the next 75, 76 days. And so it really is, when I say there is no kickoff to that effort, because there's no need for a kickoff, you know? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And we've been doing this work for 7 months now. And so now really it is, how do we maximize it? We've had more than 10,000 volunteers in the program already. There's been nearly 6,000 people that have engaged in virtual house parties or virtual action meetings already. How do we do 2 or 3 times that over the course of the next 75 days? We started off with 14 offices in 12 battleground counties. And then when we had to move into the virtual space, we essentially had to shutter those offices, and we've shifted those resources into virtual organizing tools. And so it's actually helped to break down those county district barriers to kind of open up leaders' connections to so many other districts across the state and across the country. So there will be work on, we've been working with the Biden team and the DNC around doing work on the presidential ticket. We've been working with the DSCC on Senate races around the country. We've done work around Mark Kelly. We did work around Cal Cunningham this past weekend. We're calling it, what is it, Swing State Sundays, I think it is, which is where we'll be doing work in other parts of the country. And then obviously the 7 congressional seats, partnering with all of you on the Save the 7 event to try to raise the resources that we need, where we've got all 6 current congressional members, plus Christy Smith, plus Adam Schiff. I know it's been great to partner with you guys on that event, which I think is going to be an outstanding event, and Orange County as well. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of activity that's already in place. You can go to condemn/mobilize, the Mobilize platform that actually gives you a clear sense of everything that's going on. Although I know you guys have a packed agenda to guide people, so maybe I should just tell them go talk to Dami and give you the guidance that you need. So yeah, a lot of work to do, and I think we've got a great foundation from which to build.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thanks, Rusty. Well, we'll be in the field with you, yeah, and we'll see you at that event. Yeah, Dolly, I see your hand is up. Go ahead. Mute it. Dolly, you're muted. Okay, there you go. There you go, yeah.
Okay, as Rusty was speaking, I was thinking, well, what are some of the old ways that we attract people so they'll listen to us when we talk about voting for our candidate? And it's to get celebrities. So what if we were to put out the word, in every locality, there are local celebrities that everyone wants an opportunity to spend time with. So if these celebrities can be, happen to be for Biden and Harris, then, or for the candidates, local candidates that we're pushing, we could have Zoom house parties, much like we're doing tonight. These are wonderful. People are really turning on, and everyone is doing it. So if each particular area could recruit names of, you know, singers and artists and local people that that folks might want to spend some time with, and offer an opportunity to do something like we're doing tonight. And then that gives us a platform to talk about our candidates and why they need to vote. I don't, you know, that's just an idea. We can be brainstorming and finding the ways. We shouldn't feel that we're really have to be idle because we can't go door to door pushing doorbells. We have to think of new ways and try them out.
I certainly, I completely agree. We need to do anything and everything. Although I will say that this election is significantly different than the 2016 election in one big respect, and that is the intensity of democratic activism and energy of being prepared to vote. I've seen multiple polls, poll after poll after poll, and there is about a 20 to 25% difference between Democrats and no party preference, decline to state independent voters in one category and Republicans in the other. And it is in the very intense, you know, come hell or high water, I'm gonna cast a ballot. There's a huge difference. Now, I understand that polls are polls, and I'm not saying that they're the end all be all, but it is rare to see this kind of intensity at 2008 level of democratic energy and activism for different reasons. 2008 was about obviously electing Barack Obama. This time, it's all about getting rid of Trump. Not that people don't like Joe Biden, and not that people don't like Kamala Harris, but that that is the driver. Trump has said he was going to be the greatest jobs creator that God ever created, which is clearly not true.
Right.
But he is the greatest GOTV machine that God ever created. And I think we've got the opportunity to really see that, in the next 75 days. So.
Definitely. Well, thanks, Rusty. I want to bring in our own state senator, who I know is on the line with us, representing the 26th district, Santa Monica's hometown boy, Ben Allen, is with us.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, John, and everybody for participating. It's been great. I've been listening in. My little baby we're giving him a bath right after the speeches, so I was able to listen in to everybody. But great. I gotta tell you, the convention's been a lot of fun. I miss being there in person, though. Probably getting a little more rest this time around. I'll tell you, it's getting me. I always was very, my vote was always in the bag for Joe and whoever he picked. But I will say, I always liked Joe Biden. I thought he was a good guy, but I wasn't particularly fired up for him. I do think that the convention's getting me excited. It's actually getting me excited about who he is, about the kind person that he is, the empathy that he has, and the fact that he's got such a good team behind him. And so it's succeeding for me in the sense that it's getting me fired up for November in a way that I don't know that I really anticipated before I started watching everything. I thought there's been a lot of substance, and there's been a lot of emotion and a lot of excitement, and it's interesting. I mean, this is a much harder convention and a much harder message to pull off than what the Republicans are going to put on next week. Because we have such a bigger tent. We have so many different kinds of people who are part of our coalition. Everything from folks who might have voted for Jill Stein last time around to Republicans who voted for Donald Trump and are seeing the light of seeing the error of their ways. And that's a tough message to tough coalition of people to pull together to vote for us. But I think they're doing a good job of highlighting the diversity of the party, the voices that exist within our party, and also the issues that we care about that we really want to do some work on. And I think today you saw climate change was highlighted in a big way that I was really happy to see, and the fact that they brought in stories from the heartland relating to climate change was super important. Obviously, the gun control conversation was emotional and difficult to watch with Gabby Giffords, who's just such a shining light of heroism and fortitude and grit and resilience. The immigration stories were powerful and certainly a reminder of the awful bigotry that has gone behind so much of this last few years. And unfortunately, the most powerful Santa Monican right now, who's been at the heart of those terrible immigration policies, our very own Santa Monica High School graduate, Stephen Miller. Yeah, boo, boo. So, domestic violence and talking about the leadership role that Biden played on the Violence Against Women Act, obviously the economy. So it was a good kind of mix of substance, and then to have the packed punch of everything from the Gabby Gifford speech, a couple really powerful lines in Hillary's speech. I thought Nancy Pelosi was great. As usual, I love that line on Colbert where she said, sometimes you gotta throw a punch for the children, just for the children.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. By the way. God.
And then Obama. I mean, I got to tell you. I mean, I'm sorry. I think it was Carolyn. I let that guy take over my television for hours. The integrity, the eloquence, the rectitude, the intelligence that he brought to office, and then he brought to that speech. It just every time I see him, I get sad because it reminds me of this special moment in American history where we elected this really decent, good man who broke incredible barriers, but also was a great president and someone we could be proud of on so many levels. And to have him up there, and I think delivering a blistering speech. I mean, a speech that I was watching some of the commentary from the BBC and they were talking about how presidents have typically not been so directly critical of the president in office. Of course, a lot of people have been waiting for Obama to come out and deliver a speech like that. And I think maybe it's a good thing he's waited so long to really pack the punch when he finally comes out. It really nicely dovetailed with Michelle's speech from a couple of nights ago. And I hope it gets a lot of play, because it was a call to arms and a reminder of not only what a danger Donald Trump is, but also what a break with basic norms of the presidency, of decency, of democratic values. There's a lot of danger in that man and in his presidency, and I think the Obama speech did a really good job of pointing all that out. Also, couldn't help but notice definitely some California love tonight. Hilda Solis got a nice little cameo,
right.
But pretty decent speech,
bigger
actually.
than a cameo. Yeah, it was a nice.
You're right, definitely bigger than a cameo. Important placement. I was watching PBS and I was watching my computer, the live feed at the same time. Unfortunately, PBS cut out and went to their commentators during Hilda, which I thought was unfortunate, because I then tuned in. I saw she did a good job. Art Garcetti, of course, got some love there, and threw in some Spanish. Couldn't help but notice him there too, talking about the economy, talking about restaurants, talking about the impact that COVID's had on the economy. So it was all in all a good, powerful day. And then of course Kamala's speech I thought was powerful and kind of conveyed her warmth and her smile and her, but also her strength. I thought it was well delivered. I couldn't help, I looked over to Melanie, who I was sitting next to, and in spite of the fact that our baby was jumping all over us, she was getting teary-eyed as she watched the introduction to Kamala, because I think everybody on this call has been talking about what a powerful moment this is. To have Dolly's perspective, for example, talking about what a vision for what a president or vice president has always been, at least in the old, and you think back to the song I used to listen to when I was a kid, but when Tupac talked about how we're not ready, we'll never see a black president, and then to kind of not, and then to see how close we got to shattering the glass ceiling when Hillary nearly made it, and couldn't, wasn't able to get there through the electoral college, and now with Kamala. I mean, it's exciting to see how much this country has changed, even in my short little lifetime, and it's exciting the kind of world that we're gonna give to Ezra, my son's generation, if we lock this down. I mean, the choice here could not be more stark. And when Hillary talked about how Trump said when he was running, well, what do you have to lose? I think at the time, I really think that most people, they knew what a jerk this guy was, but I really don't think they thought he'd be as bad as he's been. And to have the forward-thinking, the pluralistic, the multicultural, the big tent, big heart ticket of Biden and Harris, but also the incredible range of Democrats that we have running up and down the ticket from every background, from the LGBT Black Maine legislator that we saw yesterday to the fiery compassion of Elizabeth Warren, who we saw tonight, to Robert Garcia. I mean, the people that we have in our bench it's so much more reflective of America. It's so much more reflective of our values and a bright, optimistic future. And God, I can't. I hope to God things are going to go well. And of course, it's not just about hope; it's going to be about work. And Dami, you asked a great question of Rusty, who of course has been doing good work getting our party going. Just special shout out to this club. I know you and John have been working so hard on trying to pull together a really strong GOTV campaign that's targeting swing states and is targeting those areas that also, let's really focus a lot on those areas where we can get more bang for buck, swing state on the presidential, but also where we can, swing district or swing state with regards to US Senate and the House. So definitely we need to be excited, but let's not forget that Hillary Clinton was way in the lead last time, this time around, this time of the year. None of us thought that it was possible that we could lose to this putz. And, we've been suffering under him for the last 4 years. And I really think, we can come back from 4 years of this guy, but I really think that there is danger. There is serious danger associated with 8 years of this president. You look at how countries change, and you look at the things we take for granted in terms of our core democratic norms, and I really think they're in jeopardy. I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but to have the country rubber stamp or somehow put a stamp of approval on the behavior that this president has exhibited, I think will cause lasting damage onto the core democratic norms of our country. And if you think it's not possible, look at history and look at other countries and look how they have backslid with regards to their commitment to democracy. There are many examples, and it's up to us now to steel ourselves, to double down, and to fight like hell to make sure we win back the White House and we restore some sanity and accountability to Washington, D.C.
Very well put. Very well said. Yeah, I mean, I thought that. Sorry, did someone have something to say? Oh, well, why don't we bring in Shy Roy, who I know just commented in the chat, but I know he wanted to bring up something about his take in seeing an Indian American woman getting the nomination for the first time.
Shy? I keep my comments brief, but I wanted to echo Ben's comment at the end. I think that strong nations throughout thousands of years of history, the way nations fall is a string of bad leaders. And it's not really necessarily a conservative or a liberal thing, it's a competence thing. And we had, George W. Bush, 8 years of George W. Bush with inconsistent bad leadership. And then to have 8 years of Trump in close proximity to that, that's 16 out of 24 years of bad leadership. And I'm not sure if our country would be able to sort of come back from that easily. And so I did want to comment on every immigrant group that comes into the United States, every minority group has different challenges, and I just want to sort of express my pride in a way that I'm not sure that I expected to feel when she was nominated, but just pride that the first Indian American nominee, the first API nominee, I think it's a really great step forward for our party, for our country, and just to bring just more and more diverse voices and perspectives into our party, into our leadership, and so I think that she just has such a unique experience as for a leader in that position, as an African American, as a woman, as well as a mother who is an Indian American / Asian American immigrant. So she has such a unique experience and perspective. And I think that will strengthen our leadership. And so I just wanted to express my pride on that, and just really look forward positively to her leadership as vice president.
And Shy, when she talked about her chitties, what does that mean?
I missed that part of it. What did she say? I don't know. I missed the.
She talked about her family, and but she talked about her chitties. I think is that aunties? Anyway, all right.
May I'd have to go back and look at it. That word doesn't sound familiar, so I'm not sure. But India is like 1,000 languages, and so she's from South India, and my family's from North India, and so the words might be a little bit different.
Well, she did say that the kids call her Mamala, which I thought is good because that kind of sounds Yiddish to me. That's something that I've heard in my family.
Yes.
That's true. That's very Jewish. Yeah, and her husband's Jewish. So
right. So, but yeah, that's a great point, Shy. And we're going to come back to it tomorrow. We have the chair of the Progressive Caucus, Amar Shergill, who is a Sikh Indian, and he's got a lot of interesting perspective on this topic because he has a complicated history in thinking about Kamala and her record, and he's definitely come around to it. But we'll hear it from him tomorrow. But yeah, it's very exciting, and I think it is a similar story with Barack Obama. And when we were first getting to meet Barack Obama, that was one of the key things. It wasn't just that he was Black, but that he had a story that was the story of America. And now we're seeing with Kamala a very similar story with two different immigrants from different places meeting together as activists, right? And it's a very powerful and great story. And I thought that Obama, putting his speech at the American Revolution Museum is actually really powerful. And what we were just talking about, what Ben was talking about, and the existential threat that this election faces, because that Barack Obama was putting us in the position of those American revolutionaries and reminding us. And I've been to this museum, and if you are ever in Philadelphia, it is one of the best museums there, and that's saying a lot. But it is a very in-depth, like, person-to-person look at what it would be like in the time of the American Revolution. And I think that by setting the speech there, he was really, and that's what I talked about earlier with that word "you," right? I think that's really powerful, that it really is up to you, and us that are the ones who need to do this work, and we'll be the ones who benefit from it. So why don't we bring in our final guest of the evening. She's running for City Council in West Hollywood. We're so glad to have her here as a guest at the Santa Monica Dem Club, Sepi Shyne.
Woo woo! Good evening, everyone. What an incredible night. I'm so honored to be speaking tonight. Thank you, John, and the board for inviting me and organizing these incredible after parties. They're phenomenal. My name is Sepi Shyne. I'm a proud Iranian-American immigrant, an attorney, a small business owner, and I serve as a business license commissioner in the city of West Hollywood and on the LA County Assessors Advisory Council, and I'm a civil rights advocate. I'm running a progressive people-powered campaign for West Hollywood City Council. Secretary Clinton said tonight that our country's story is about breaking down barriers and expanding our circle of possibility. My election will do just that. I will be the first woman of color and second lesbian elected to the council, and the first out LGBTQ Iranian elected to public office anywhere in the world. The powerful women that spoke tonight inspired me to run for office. This election is about the future of West Hollywood and not the past. The two incumbents seeking re-election have served for 36 and 19 years, respectively. It is time to break down the barriers and elect new progressive voices to the table. We need new leaders who will prioritize our residents and workers. That means creating opportunities for people to live and work in West Hollywood with more affordable housing, building permanent supportable housing for our unhoused population in West Hollywood, revitalizing our economy with project labor agreements and safety measures to put people safely back to work while providing critical resources for our small businesses and our renters who are struggling. As someone who fled a war-torn country and lived the first 16 years of my life as an undocumented immigrant, I know all too well the inequities and barriers that exist when others, especially people in positions of power, view themselves as better than you. I know that once I am elected, I will have the responsibility to protect and serve everyone and not just the privileged. I am running to bring the people's voices back to City Hall, bring hope back to our residents, and help revitalize our economy. And because I put my money where my mouth is, I'm not taking a single penny from developers or law enforcement. I'm running because we all deserve to shine. And I'm so excited to share with you first, before sharing with anyone else, that I have been endorsed by the Federation of Labor and by Senate President Pro Tem Emeritus and LA Council Member-elect Kevin DeLeon, and I'm also honored to be endorsed by John Katz and Nicole Phillis.
John, can I say something?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Dallas.
I hope you all heard what Sepi said. The two of the incumbents, 19 years, 20 plus years on a city council. Where does that happen? This is Los Angeles. Yes, it's West Hollywood. They got a smaller population. But to be West Hollywood so diverse and no person of color on that board, barely any women. They finally got somebody else on there with Lindsay. But we can't let this type of stuff happen as a party. Why do we continue to endorse the same people over and over and over again? That's what's got to stop. And more of us have to speak up and speak out about it and hold those who we know who have been active and strong in the party to supporting these people who we know are going to be doing better work for us. Thank you.
Yes, Dallas. And I think, you know, we started this night talking about feminism. I think, Sepi, you embody so much about what I think of when I think of what does my feminism look like and what do I want my feminist practice to be. You've dedicated life to public service. You are so selfless in what you do. You think about everyone before you. You are exactly the type of person who should be on city council, and representation matters. The fact that you are, you know, going to be the second out or lesbian on city council, the fact that you are, you know, a woman of color, these things matter. And I think it's really important that folks in this room know that these are things that still to this day hinder women, particularly women of color, getting into office. Just last weekend, I saw attacks on Sepi because she dared to talk about the fact that there is a lack of representation on West Hollywood City Council by a sitting West Hollywood council member. Disgusting attacks, false attacks that were completely baseless. This is the time where we all need to band together to have her back and to have the back of the many other women who are running for office. Sepi, I could not be more excited. I cannot wait to see you on city council. I hope everyone in this room gets mobilized because we need more electeds like you in office.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Dallas.
And send her $100.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
So Sepi, I think we have 3 rent control board members on the call here from Santa Monica. And so I know that one issue that is very similar in West Hollywood to Santa Monica is for renters and renters issues. So what do you see in terms of your race, in terms of how you differentiate yourself from the other candidates in terms of issues that are most important to renters?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a renter myself, and I'm my building's tenant advocate, really. When COVID happened, our landlord sent out a letter saying that we're going to do you a favor and give you 60 days to postpone your rent to everyone. And I contacted them and I said, you know, actually the city of West Hollywood passed a eviction moratorium that is for 60 days. So that's not, you're actually not doing anyone a favor. So then I advocated for our tenants and spoke to them to make sure they had all the information. I've been outspoken at City Council for tenants' rights and to push the City Council to really send the information. Now they've passed an eviction moratorium, yet not all our residents have gotten mailers about the moratorium. I would want the City Council, we do rental grants to renters, and they've been extended from $1,000 for 1 year to per year to 3 $1,000 grants for 3 months. However, the average rent in West Hollywood, because there's been so much economic displacement and the rising cost of rents, is $1,764. And so that's over $700 that renters still don't have even after getting the grants. LA City Council passed a great moratorium, and they included a provision to protect buildings against the Ellis Act. West Hollywood didn't do that, so I will be an advocate for renters in that respect. We also need to bring community together by working with our neighborhood associations, because 80% of West Hollywood are renters. That's a huge population. We're 37,000 people. That's the majority of the people, and the city was really created to protect renters. And as time has gone by, with unfortunately, you know, I've endorsed Prop 21 and will actively advocate for the passage of Prop 21. It is essential. It is absolutely essential. Susie Shannon the other night was talking about the 4 million people in California that could be unhoused the threat of losing their homes and their rentals if this doesn't pass. There's a lot we can do, and there's a lot we can do also to engage community. My expertise is engaging community. It's all about going into neighborhoods, talking to residents, and helping to empower our residents is really important. And I want to work with our neighborhood associations to make sure that they can send information out to the majority of the renters, and that City Hall is doing a better job communicating to our residents. Oh, and I also want City Hall to, we basically work with the, thank goodness, with the Coalition of Economic Survival, with Larry Gross, who has been a godsend for our city from the beginning, help form the city essentially. But we need a strong tenant advocacy. I would like to see the city have an eviction defense clinic or attorney at City Hall. It had come up before COVID happened, and then it's just kind of forgotten, but we need to really invest in providing eviction defense to tenants, because what's coming down the pike is going to be really scary, and we need to keep people housed. If we keep us housed, it's a lot less cost than everyone losing their homes on so many levels and then trying to house people. So.
Great, very well said. Well, why don't we open it up for a few minutes to questions. If anybody has any questions for Sepi or really any of our guests, let's take some questions. Dallas, I see you've got your hand up, but is that from before? Did you want to ask another question?
No, I'm sorry, that was from before. I'll put it down.
Okay, great. And just to I know that Dina and then you had followed up on this question about the ballot collection efforts by the party, and unfortunately, right when you were asking that, Rusty messaged me that he had to take off. So I'll try to get a follow up with him and get an answer on it. Any other questions for anybody?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. Oh yeah. Hey. Oh, this is a good guest. Well, so she's from Santa Monica. She's a former housing commissioner. She's about 10 feet away from me right now. Anjali Kronheim-Katz.
Hey. I wanted to make an offering. It's not a question. Is that all right?
Of course.
So I heard Nicole and others talk about like how sexism and racism is, how we're going to see a lot of that after Kamala, and how we're going to see a lot of that after people like Sepi, who's running. And I was recently given some really helpful training that racism, sexism, Islamophobia, these are not things that should have verbs after them. They're not people or ideas that creep in. Other people actually use them to retain and hold on to power. So the more that we can actually call out the specific media outlets that do sexist stuff, like to people like AOC or the Kamala or elected officials who do that, the more easy it's to attack and the less scary it is. If the tide is rising, if it's creeping, it's like a thing that we can't attack and we can't blame someone for using that. So just wanted to make that offering, and I'm happy to talk about it more with anybody.
Thank you.
Great point.
That's a really important point, and thank you, Anjali. That's an incredible offering, and it's absolutely true. History has shown us that any kind of oppression of people is rooted in the false perception that if we expand, we've talked about having more people at the table, but if we expand the table, that somehow our power will become less, and that's actually not true. The more we have diversity, the more we expand the table, the more voices we have, then the more collective power we will have, especially within our party, to create all of the changes for Democrats and America.
Great.
And I would just like to thank John, because I think one of the practices that I have about intersectional feminism is the question, do you create more space than you take up? And I think tonight is a perfect example of John creating space for to specifically talk about these issues of equity and representation, and using this club as a platform to explicitly talk about those issues and have people who have dealt with those issues head on be the ones who are participating and directing the conversation. So John, thank you for being such a great ally. I think that this was a profoundly feminist, event, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That really means a lot.
John, I have one comment.
Okay, let's hear from John Medlin.
Yeah, first of all, I think we should be very grateful for Donald Trump. He has been the biggest energizer of people to support the Democratic nominees in the last 40 years. People are coming out of the woodwork, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, to replace this wacko. The second thing is I agree very much with what Dallas said earlier when she stated that we need to stop the demonstrations until January 20th. If you look at what's been going on in Portland, where some of the Antifada BLM guy tried to kill some guy who was trying to save his daughter or his girlfriend, people, the Trumpsters, they'll see that everywhere. They're going to beat us over the head with it. So I'm grateful for Trump, because without him, I wouldn't be a Democrat. I wouldn't have been on the phones for the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, you're right in that sense, John, because we're really glad to have you on the team. And, we don't always agree on every issue, but it's right. What we've seen in this convention is a really, really big tent where we have people who, like John Kasich, who is further to the right than you are, and then you've got some real moderates right there. And then you had some, regular Democrats, and we even heard from AOC and Bernie and a couple of other people in there who, I think Elizabeth Warren, my candidate, who were real progressive champions. And I think it's been really cool to see. It's a very deliberate effort from the Biden campaign to show that there is such a wide tent, a big tent for this election. It's really impressive.
Trump is our Santa Claus.
Let's hope he delivers for sure.
We're going to deliver him.
I saw that Kimball had a comment.
Yeah, I definitely do. First of all, I think we've come a long way from 2016 to today. And I don't know, I know quite a few of you on the phone, and I've talked to John and Dami about this. I currently reside in the 25th Congressional District, and we truly appreciate all the work that you guys have given us. But one of the things that we appreciate what you guys have done is having these hard conversations like tonight. Thank you, Senator Allen, for kind of putting it out there about the huge tent of diversity in the Democratic Party. And I think that we just, we have to move forward with that. And we truly appreciate you guys looking at these hard questions of equity and social justice. And I'm elated to be on the call today. And all I can say is keep up all the good work, and keep the fight, and keep going strong.
We love you, Kimball.
Thanks, Kimball. Glad to hear from you. And by the way, you spoke about the 25th district, so that's a great segue for tomorrow. We're going to have Christy Smith joining us to close out the big headlining speaker to close out tomorrow night. We're going to have Ted Lieu and Christy Smith together for a half hour. We'll talk to them both about the entire convention, about the Biden-Harris ticket, what we're going to do to get that ticket elected, and how we're going to get Christy elected as well. And in addition to the two of them, we've also got Mayor Kevin McEwen coming. I mentioned earlier on Amar Shergill, the chair of the Progressive Caucus of the CDP. And also we're going to have Susie Shannon back with us. She previewed the Poverty Council on Monday. Again, the Poverty Council is coming up tomorrow, so you'll be able to tune in. If you go to Democratic Convention website, you can click on Poverty Council and get a Zoom link like you did for this. And you'll be able to watch it during the day, and then we'll have Susie on to recap it tomorrow evening. So we'll be back tomorrow right after Joe Biden's speech. We'll see everybody there.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
I'm trying to get the music.
Bye, everyone.